Hey, what's up, BC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel. Time for another hard rock and heavy metal update. Just kind of jump into it. First up, really cool Japanese press. This is actually a Japan-only release. This is X Bomber from Bow Wow. Bow Wow is a 70s and 80s hard rock heavy metal band from Japan. A lot of their early stuff is Japan only. I absolutely love the band. This is one I wasn't familiar with, though, but I bought a lot of, I believe, 3 or 4 of Bow Wow's albums, original Japanese pressings, and this is one of them. Now, Bow Wow in 83 or 84 changed their name to Vow Wow. I'm sure it was a lawsuit with Bow Wow Wow or one of the early bands like that. This one is really cool, though. This is a soundtrack from, I believe, does it say? I believe it was 80. Yeah, 1980. A soundtrack for some sort of, I don't know if you guys remember in the 70s, they had all these sci-fi shows where they used puppets. And that's kind of what this was. It was called something X Bomber. I can't remember the full name of it, and I can't read it right there. But what's cool about this is you've got a really cool heavy metal sound, but there's also kind of that space sci-fi, early 80s or 70s, 80s sci-fi sound to it. Kind of experimental too. It's really cool, and it's a really enjoyable listen. It's not something you would expect from Bow Wow or Vow Wow. I really enjoyed it, though. There's only 2 songs on here, if I remember correctly, with lyrics. The rest of it's just instrumentals that were played in the background. And from what I hear, this is only half of the song. So the singer from the band did about half the songs solo and then half the songs with the band. I don't know if those other songs... I actually think that I read that the other songs were never released. But very cool. Really dig this. If you run across, if you're a fan of Bow Wow or Vow Wow, I mean, it's worth getting anyway. Just a really cool addition to the collection. Next up, one I was super excited about. I absolutely love this album. When they announced that it was going to be released, I pre-ordered it right away. Actually, I think this was this may have been a Kickstarter. I believe it was a Kickstarter. And then when I opened it, I couldn't have been more disappointed. This is one of the lowest quality album pressings I've seen. I mean, it's horrible. This is Vanishing Lessons from Tourniquet. Like I said, this is a favorite of mine. I absolutely love this album from beginning to end, and it sounds great. They did a great job on the album itself. It's a clear, I think they call it clear smoke is the color, so it's clear with like a black and brown smokiness to it. And it came signed. There were 350 of this pressing. Very cool, but I don't know how well. It's just pixelated, and it just looks terrible. There you go. You can kind of see it better there. I was really disappointed. And what was really surprising is this is the 4th or 5th album that they've pressed to vinyl. This is the only one that looks like this. All the rest of them look great, which makes no sense. But yeah, I was pretty disappointed with that. Next up, from No Life Till Metal Records, we've got Helix Old School. This is a pretty cool album. I've talked about this before. I showed the CD a while back. I love the A side. There's one song on the B side that doesn't do anything for me. Other than that, really solid album. What's cool about this is, Brian Vollmer recently moved from his house, and he was going through, I think it was stuff in his attic, and he found a box with a bunch of old tapes, and he was going to throw them out, and I don't know if he decided to listen to them or somebody talked him into listening to them, but he went ahead and listened to the tapes before he got rid of them. And found a bunch of old songs that they had written back between the early 80s and the early 90s that had never been recorded, or that they just kind of rough cuts. And it was songs that get forgotten about. And he decided to re-record them with this current lineup. Their guitar player from, I believe, the late 80s until the early 90s. He died in 91 or 92. I can't remember if it was what it was. I don't remember if it was a car accident or if it was a health thing. But the cool thing about this is a couple of the songs on here were songs that he had recorded guitar for. And they pulled those recordings and they re-recorded everything. But on those two songs, they spliced in his original guitar from when they did the rough takes. Very cool album. Very cool story. But Helix. Next up, King's X. Just an absolutely phenomenal album. I believe their third album. Just spitball. I'm pretty sure it was their third album, though. Dogman. Just absolutely phenomenal. King's X is one of those bands that just didn't do any wrong, in my opinion. I like everything that they've ever released. These first four albums are by far my favorite, though, and the ones I listen to the most. So I was super excited when I found out that they were pressing those to vinyl, and that one's been sitting here forever. This was a recent pickup, and I actually picked it up because I knew they were going for crazy money, and I picked it up for cheap, and I was going to sell it. And decided to keep it. It's actually four really good songs, which surprised me because I wasn't a huge fan of this album. But this is Metallica Beyond Magnetic. They did a pretty limited run on this. This one is the limited edition silver vinyl, mastered by Bernie Grundman. And then it's got this little Metallica sticker. I really like all four songs, though. Hate Train is great, Just a Bullet Away, Hell and Back, Rebel of Babylon. These are basically songs that didn't make Beyond Magnetic. Like I said, I wasn't a huge fan. It's not my least favorite album in the world. It's not a great album for Metallica, though. Death Magnetic. I thought this was cool, though, so I decided to keep it in the collection. Next up, just an all-time thrash classic. I have an original pressing of this, but I've played the shit out of it. It's kind of beat up. This is the MOV pressing on blue vinyl. This is Annihilator, Allison, Hell. It's just a masterpiece from the Canadian thrashers. A must-have for any metalhead. Next up, speaking of MOV, was this one actually may not be MOV. No, this is a legacy pressing. I think I have the other albums on MOV. But Rage Against the Machine, their debut, still just as good as it was when it came out. I love this album. I wish I still had. I had their original album, which I think most of the songs on here were on the original cassette. I had a friend that saw them in Berkeley and was blown away by how good they were. He was a real big hardcore fan, and it was a LA hardcore show in Berkeley. It was like 3 or 4 bands, and one of the bands was Rage Against the Machine in the early days. So if you're not aware, they released, I don't know if you call it a demo. I think it was an actual album, but they self-released a cassette before this. And it's a good portion of the songs from this. But he got me a copy of it. And, man, we played the shit out of it. We didn't know who this band was. And then about 7-8 months later, we started hearing the songs on the radio. And then this album was released. I don't know what happened to that cassette. It may still be floating around at my mom's house in a box somewhere. Who knows? That would be cool. Because I think they go for pretty for a lot of money. But next up, just another classic, Dimension Hatros from Voivod. Again, they've been repressing the Voivod stuff. Very cool to finally have this on vinyl. I believe this is where I joined the Voivod train. And this is just, it's a favorite of mine. Actually, I like every album from this point on. The first couple albums. The first one is a hard listen. It's just raw. And I still like to put it on from time to time. The second album was definitely better. There's still a little bit of rawness. This is the album where I really got on board with Voivod, though. Black Label Society, Order of the Black, another band that I just absolutely love. You can't go wrong with Zakk Wylde. He's just a master. I like all of the Black Label albums. Mass, this one was VCLT from Brother Scott Waters. This is New Birth. This is a half and half album. There's some really solid songs on here where it's just really good hard rock, melodic metal. And then there's some stuff where it's just over the top pop metal, and I just can't get into it. So this one's kind of a mixed album for me. Still a couple of really solid songs on here that I like, though, and it's still worth pulling out and spinning from time to time. Oh, let's see. Next up, another super criminally underrated band. This was one of the first bands on Metal Blade. When was this? This one was 88. I think their first album was like 83 or 84. But this is Pandemonium, The Kill. I love this album. I love everything that these guys released. Highly recommend checking it out. Three brothers, David, Chris, and Eric Resch. Just a phenomenal band. If you run across any of their stuff, grab it. And this is another band. This is this is an original pressing from '88, and I think I paid like $12 for it in mint condition. Because they're criminally underrated, you can grab their stuff for really cheap. So if you run across anything from Pandemonium, grab it. Just really good, solid '80s metal. And then last but not least, this is one that I was super excited that it was finally pressed to vinyl and a CD, because CDs are impossible to find. The original CDs go for anywhere from $30 to $100 for this album. This is the second full-length album. I believe it was released. They released it themselves, and then it was released on No Life Till Metal Records. But this is Taken by Storm, or Take 'Em by Storm from Banshee. I've shown this before. I just pulled it out and started spinning it again and gave it 3 or 4 more spins, and thought I would show it again. Another one that you should definitely have in your collection if you're a fan of 80s metal. That's it, guys. Take care. Stay safe. Subscribe. I'll see you soon.